So, viewers, we welcome Group Captain Ashok Kumar Chaudia, an Indian Air Force veteran, and author of the book Operation Cactus: Anatomy of one of India's most daring military operations. An Air Force veteran, Group Captain Ashok Chaudia has served the Indian Air Force for over 35 years. A logistics officer, he specialized as a parachute jump instructor, or PGIs as we call them, and a special forces instructor. He was a member of the Indian contingent to rescue President M.A. Gayoom of the Maldives, and the operation was codenamed Operation Cactus, and which took place in November 1988. As a parachute jump instructor at the Paratroopers Training School and as Commandant and Chief Instructor at Garud Regimental Training Center, he has trained paratroopers and Indian Air Force Special Forces personnel. He has undertaken test jumps with indigenously developed parachutes by the DRDO and headed the quality assurance and defect investigation of parachutes at the Ordnance Parachute Factory, Kanpur. He has, to his credit, over 500 parachute descents from 10 different types of aircrafts, including Charlie 13J Super Hercules. He also holds a Limca Book of Record for flying the first parachute formation in the Indian skies and is founding member of Akash Ganga, the skydiving team of the Indian Air Force. Discovery Channel has telecast a documentary based on the book, and a feature film on the subject is in the offing. He has been a senior fellow at the Center for Air Power Studies and has published and presented several papers. He guides university interns, conducts seminars and capsule courses for university students and young officers. So with that, I would like to welcome Group Captain Chaudia.
Thank you, Group Captain. It's a pleasure being with you.
Yes, Group Captain Chaudia, it's entirely a pleasure to have you on board for this talk on Operation Cactus. And the learners have evinced a lot of interest. I have talked to them during various, lectures that we hold, and they have definitely evinced interest in wanting to know things from the horse's mouth. So that is where I thought it would be, best to get you to, talk to them. So with that, I welcome you on this show.
Thank you, Group Captain Pandey. The subject is very close to my heart.
So in a nutshell, if you could just tell us what this Operation Cactus is all about.
On November 3, 1988, Male, the capital of Maldives, was a ravaged city. There was an attempted coup. A person called a Maldivian businessman, Abdullah Lutufi, had joined hands with Maheshwaran, the leader of People's Liberation Organization of Tamil Eelam. The plan was to overthrow the government of President Maumoon Abdul Gayoom. And the deal was that in case they succeeded, Maheshwaran would get a couple of islands in the north of the country to carry on with his nefarious activities. So they set course on the 28th of October from Sri Lanka and headed towards the Maldives. President Gayoom, on an inkling, cancelled his visit to India and stayed put. So when these people reached there, he was still in the capital. And these people didn't know that he was available in the city. So they went on a rampage. They started shooting and killing people. They thought they had got control of the country. But President Maumoon Abdul Gayoom went into hiding into one of the houses in the city. And he started sending SOS messages to countries all over the world, to the US, the UK, whole lot of Commonwealth countries, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, India. As you can see, the president was hiding on this island of Male, measuring just about 2 kilometers by 1 kilometer. The only way to reach him was by landing troops on this runway on the island of Pulule, which could be done either by landing the aircraft or carrying out a paradrop. Now imagine the size of this runway. You can see it here. there is hardly any space around the runway where paratroopers could be
Absolutely.
dropped. So there was one challenge of dropping paratroopers. The other was even landing on this runway in the night without any aids was a tough task. Besides, if the terrorists who were on the other island would take just about 15 minutes to reach, and we were to take about 4 hours to reach. If the terrorists had taken control of this runway, then landing would have been literally impossible. Under those circumstances, the Indian Air Force airlifted the paratroopers and landed them on the runway. The paratroopers took boats, speedboats, and headed towards the island of Malé, rescued the president, and the terrorists, some of them, they hijacked a merchant vessel. They took some hostages on board and fled towards Sri Lanka. They were chased by the Indian Navy and made to surrender, and the hostages were rescued. That's how ultimately the operation came to an end. President was rescued, the hostages were rescued, and we had no casualties on our side.
ओके सो इसको हम एक लाइटनिंग ऑपरेशन भी बोलते हैं. सो आपको मतलब ऐसा क्यों हम बोला जाता है कि इट इज बीन अ लाइटनिंग ऑपरेशन, इसके ऊपर अगर आप प्रकाश डालें.
यू कैन इमेजिन, जो पहली इंफॉर्मेशन इसके बारे में मिली थी कि वहां पर तांडव चल रहा है, उस समय प्राइम मिनिस्टर जो थे राजीव गांधी, वो पटना में थे और उनका आगे कलकत्ता जाने का प्रोग्राम था. उन्होंने लौटे वापस जल्दी से. 11 साढ़े 11 बजे दिन में मीटिंग हुई. ऑर्डर्स जो थे वो करीब मिड डे, करीब 12-1 बजे ऑर्डर्स पास हुए कि इस ऑपरेशन को अंजाम देना है. और आगरा में जो पैराट्रूपर्स हैं उनको और 44 स्क्वाड्रन एयरफोर्स की तरफ से जो जिसने पार्टिसिपेट किया था उनको जब हुक्म मिले, उसके बाद पहली खेप जो हवाई जहाज की थी, पहली फ्लीट जो हवाई जहाज की थी, उसने टेक ऑफ किया और रात को 10 बजे हम लोगों ने हुलूले आइलैंड पर लैंड किया. और अगले दिन करीब 4:30 बजे तक प्रेसिडेंट को बचा सके थे, रेस्क्यू कर चुके थे. इस सब में आप इमेजिन करिए कि अखबारों में जब खबर छपी अगले दिन कि मालदीव्स में इस तरह का उपद्रव हुआ है और प्रेसिडेंट को बचाने के लिए फौज भेजी गई है, जब ये खबर छपी तब तक प्रेसिडेंट को ऑलरेडी बचाया जा चुका था.
मतलब आप बोल रहे हैं सवेरे 4:30 बजे तक उनको रिहा कर दिया गया था.
जी, बचा लिया था और उनको एक सेफ बिल्डिंग में ले आए थे.
So that is very I think yes, इसीलिए शायद इसको लाइटनिंग ऑपरेशन बोला जाता है. और will you throw some light on your role in this operation?
I was a young flight lieutenant then, a parachute jump instructor posted in the paratroopers training school. And as per the standard operating procedures, whenever there is a paradrop undertaken from the Indian Air Force aircraft, parachute jump instructors are supposed to be on board. So in this operation, I had led a team of parachute jump instructors to assist in carrying out the paradrop in case that was required. That was not done. But subsequently, a need arose for someone to be on the island of Hulule to control a paradrop in case it was required subsequently. So in my capacity as a parachute jump instructor, I spent the entire night, the fateful night, on the island of Hulule, and next day went to Malé also.
Okay. So अगर हम बात करें एक decision making, because ऐसे operations में decisions, quick decisions and जिसे बोलते हैं appropriate decisions are very important. So any views on that?
Of course, the decision making at the highest levels was very fast and very clear thinking was there. Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi, as I mentioned earlier, he was in Patna, he cancelled his visit and he returned to Delhi. He was met by the three chiefs. I mean, two chiefs were away. The air chief and the naval chief were not there. The vice chiefs were officiating. And the army chief was there. And the diplomats suggested to the Prime Minister that it was in India's interest to assist the Maldivians in quelling this coup. So once the diplomats were unanimous that the assistance must be given, the army was asked whether they can do it. General V.N. Sharma was the chief that time. He said, yes, if given an opportunity, we can rescue the president. So the decision was to be made at that time whether to carry out a paradrop or to land the troops there. So they didn't take the decision there because they knew that professionals were required. So they left all the decision making and the planning and execution to the uh, para brigade in Agra and the 44th Squadron Air Force. The decision also was a difficult decision because in this time duration, 4 hours that we were going to take from Agra to the Maldives, the terrorists could possibly occupy the runway. And under those circumstances, the the landing of troops by India could be considered as an uninvited aggression. It could be considered as aggression on the part of India. So uh, that that made it even more tricky.
Okay. Now, obviously, some decisions would have been taken at the, let's say, at the operational level. So ये जो हमने अभी बात की है, this is more at the policy making level, and when the executing authority, let us say the para brigade, the commander of the para brigade. So anything on that, the leadership, the decision taking.
At every level, the leadership was remarkable. Brigadier Bulsara, he was firm on whatever he wanted to do. Initially, there were indications from army headquarters and from Delhi to suggest that para drop be carried out. But he himself being a paratrooper, he said, please let me plan my operation the way I want to do it. And the credit must go to the leadership at the highest levels again. They gave him a free hand. Initially, he was told to uh, take off by about 12 o'clock.
Okay.
But subsequently, he was given free hand, and we finally took off after adequate preparation. We took off at 6 o'clock in the evening. And the decision whether or not to carry out a paragraph was left to the leader at the grassroots level, that is the para brigade level.
Okay. So obviously, that makes things that much in control, for the people on ground, who were to execute that. Now, obviously, अगर इस तरह का कोई operation होता है, so there are bound to be hurdles, there are bound to be difficulties, as we say, many a slip between the cup and the lip. So despite a lot of plans, there will be certain hurdles, certain difficulties. So can you recall some of them?
There were many hurdles, but everyone, I must say, from the senior most officers to the junior most Jawan, everyone rose to the occasion and exploited whatever means we had. To begin with, in those days, we didn't have a quick reaction force.
Okay.
And the para brigade, the troops were scattered all over. The 3 battalions that were supposed to participate in this operation, one of the battalions, 7 para, was in Ban Bareta, about 180 kilometers away from Agra. So how do you muster them? Then another battalion, one of the companies was guarding command house in Lucknow, and 2 companies of the 3rd battalion were guarding the ordnance depot, which was under threat from the Khalistani terrorists. There was hardly any communication. I mean, and see how people overcame those difficulties. The initial telephone calls that came from Malé, they were not dropped. And they were told to keep the telephone line alive throughout so that we could get some intelligence. Otherwise, there was no source of any authenticated information from there. So the telephone line was kept alive for almost 18 hours till the president was rescued.
Oh, I see.
Then on reaching Hulule, we would need some boats to travel to Malé to rescue the president. So message was passed to our counterparts in Malé to push away all the boats from there, tell all the boat owners to take their boats away to the island of Hulule. And that's what they did. Then the fluidity was all through there. The difficulty of the possibility of the terrorists occupying the runway was there throughout. The pilots, they had to land there in the night, and there was an understanding with the controller there who would pass a code word and allow the aircraft to come in and land. He switched on the light for a very short while for the aircraft to align, and then switched it off again, and switched it on again when the aircraft was about to land, and switched it off again. So it was in almost absolute darkness that the aircraft landed. Credit goes to the pilots who were bold enough to land under those circumstances when even there was threat from the terrorists from the ground.
I think that is something, there's a very important point that you're making, that as per the initial reports, there were indications that, they had the capacity to shoot down the aircraft. So despite that, you can say, threat. So there was this daring landing undertaken by the pilots.
Then there were no maps.
Okay.
We didn't have maps of the islands, and the army would have been groping in case we had landed without maps there. So the para brigade was quite ingenious in that. They used tourist guides and coffee table books to guide the troops, to brief them about the islands. And then the best of all, Brigadier Bulsara, when he saw the Indian High Commissioner, Mr. A.K. Banerjee, during the briefing, he requested him to come on board the aircraft and guide the troops in case required when we landed at Hulule. Reluctantly, though, he came on board after permissions were sought from Delhi, and he was available like a moving map, like a moving encyclopedia of the Maldives. That also was a great help, and that's how we managed things the way we could.
Yeah, obviously, there must have been, many hurdles, like you said, some of those you have already elucidated here. Now, you took off from Agra. So from the time you left Agra till the time of rescue of the president, can you recall the events?
Oh, that
As you
memory
thought.
is it's etched in my mind. That day morning, I was supposed to be heading towards Pune for a skydiving demonstration. That plan was changed, and I was before I could realize I was on board the first IL-76 aircraft, which was heading towards Malé. And initially, the secrecy was so much that we were being told, we were being briefed on a need-to-know basis. So until I boarded the aircraft, I didn't know where we were heading. Going by the antecedents, I thought, and quite a few of the others who were on board the aircraft thought that we were heading towards Trivandrum or Sulur or some airfield in the southern part of India for some operation in Sri Lanka, because those days, if you remember,
Yes,
the IPKF operations were in full swing in Sri Lanka.
absolutely.
So that was the thought process in the beginning. So subsequently, we came. So on board the aircraft, uh, certain SOPs were, we couldn't stick to the SOPs. Normally, ammunition is not issued in the aircraft, but in this particular case, because we had taken off in a hurry, ammunition was issued to the troops on board the aircraft, and even grenades were in the aircraft. Another risky thing which is normally not done. Then, since absolute secrecy was maintained. There was RT silence also, radio telephony silence was there. So when we were about to leave Trivandrum and head towards the Maldives, the air traffic controller in Trivandrum started questioning the movement of the aircraft across the Indian airspace. So the pilot of the aircraft, Group Captain Bevur, was smart enough. He requested him to get Wing Commander Panikkar on board, on air, and he conversed with him in Arabic. Both of them had done a course. They had been posted in Iraq for some time, and they knew Arabic, both of them. So he told them to ask the civilian controller there to relax because we were on a mission which was a secret mission. That's how we crossed over, and then there was an understanding with the air traffic control in the Maldives. He switched on the lights momentarily for the aircraft to align, and there was an exchange of code word. And on getting a positive indication, the aircraft approached the island. The lights were switched on again for a very short while for the aircraft to land, and switched off again. That's how we landed there. The troops got out very fast, took control of the air traffic control, and spread on the island, took charge of the island. Once the island was secured, and Brigadier Bulsara had spoken to the president and got some information about the friendly people on the island of Malé, the troops started moving in speedboats towards the island of Malé. The terrorists on the other island, when they saw these two massive aircraft, IL-76 aircraft in the first wave, landing there, they got scared. So they mustered whoever could join them. They by then they had killed about 20 odd people. They took some hostages also, 7 of them. They hijacked the ship and wanted to flee. Initially, they wanted to go towards Java, but when they were moving with the lights on, they thought that keeping the lights of the ship on would be a good decision. Troops to open fire at the fleeing terrorists. The ship was damaged, but finally escaped. Because the ship was damaged and they didn't have enough fuel, they decided to head towards Sri Lanka. Now, while these people were heading towards Sri Lanka, INS Godavari and INS Betwa were directed to apprehend the ship, to intercept the ship before it could reach Sri Lanka. On this side, when the troops reached the island of Malé, they got in touch with the guards of the president, who initially wanted to stop them, but when they saw 6 gentlemen in turbans, they realized that these were friendly forces from India. They allowed the leader there, Major that time Major Dillon, to meet the president. And while this was happening, some of the terrorists were still left behind on the island. They were still shooting in the streets. So the security of the president was still in doubt. So they made a human shield around him and got him the National Security Service headquarters where he was safe. Next day and on the subsequent days, the Indian ships, INS Betwa, INS Godavari, and some other ships, they carried out a chase. They stopped the terrorists on high seas. They killed one of the hostages and threw him overboard to deter the Indian ships from continuing their chase. But then finally, when depth charges were thrown and the terrorists were scared, they surrendered finally, and the hostages were also rescued. That's how the operation came to an end. President was rescued, peace descended on the islands, and we had no casualties.
Okay, so something on the jointmanship. Of course, Army, Air Force on board together. Right from the word go. So how did the Navy, catch up? Plus, as far as the, I would say, coordination with the bureaucracy or the diplomats. So how do you, what do you have to say on this?
In a lightning operation like this, couldn't have been a success without absolute jointness in thoughts and deeds. To very small things like initially whether we should be landing at Hulule or we should be carrying out a paradrop. Whatever the army wanted, the Air Force agreed to it. Well, the of carrying out a landing and paradrop also in that small restricted space. Initially, when the decision was to be made and it was being suggested, the Air Force didn't say that will not be able to carry out. But then sense prevailed on people and they decided not to carry out a paradrop. And as we were about to leave, because of the hurry in which we were moving, it just happened that the army top brass, Brigadier Bulsara and his aides and the troops who were supposed to participate in the lead force, the the team that was supposed to lead the operation was in one aircraft, and Group Captain Goyal and Group Captain Babur, who were leading the Air Force formation, were in the other aircraft. So to facilitate that, last minute the crew of the aircraft were changed. I mean, such a thing doesn't normally happen. Once the author book has been signed, Form 700 has been signed, you don't change the crew of the aircraft, but it all goes to the jointmanship. I mean, the army wanted it a particular way, the Air Force let it happen that way. The as I mentioned earlier, the issuing of ammunition on board, it's not a done thing. But then again, it's jointness. Unless you let the army uh, prepare for it, they won't be on landing. They would not be able to get into the operation mode straight away. So whatever was required, and subsequently, Navy, they were supported throughout by the Indian Army on the island. Their rations, their other requirements, they were met by the army. So it was jointness all through. Even the diplomatic corps, as I mentioned, Mr. A.K. Banerjee, who was not supposed to be on board the aircraft, but he joined the troops and he was on board the aircraft. This speaks volumes about the jointness between the armed forces and between the armed forces and the diplomats.
I think you're making a very good point. As when we select potential officers or either the candidates whom we select in the SSBs, so one of the very important trait that we look for is the ability to cooperate with each other towards a common goal. And I think that is something which doesn't come naturally to the people, to every people, right? So, and that is no, it gets proved at such occasions, in such occasions, where those qualities they come to the fore, right? So, we also seen the involvement of fighters. So, what was the fighters' role there? I believe the Mirages were involved there.
The Mirages initially took off from Gwalior. They were supposed to be escorting information that the terrorists were in a position to shoot down. They were capable of shooting down an aircraft. So Mirages were flown, Mirage aircraft were flown, and they were positioned in Trivandrum. They were supposed to escort. But then subsequently the need was not felt, so they stayed put. Next day morning, it was decided to allow them to carry out low fly past over the islands. And that really worked because quite a few terrorists who were still hiding and probably shooting, they surrendered when they saw these aircraft and they thought that it was a mega operation and they had no chance.
Okay. Now we see that there have been different reactions from the world over as far as the success of this operation were concerned, international level.
This Operation Cactus proved the prowess of Indian military and diplomacy. President Ronald Reagan of the United States, he said that this operation will promote regional security and stability in South Asia. Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher was more candid. She said that the Brits couldn't have done it. Time magazine devoted a full issue projecting India as a rising regional power. So it did a lot to salvage the, salvage the prestige of India, which had got some beating in Sri Lanka.
Okay, now अगर हम देखें ऑपरेशन कैक्टस को एक टिपिकली सक्सेसफुल मिलिट्री ऑपरेशन माना गया है कि नहीं, क्योंकि इसके ऊपर बहुत ज्यादा चर्चा नहीं होती है, सो व्हाट डू यू हैव टू से ऑन दिस?
ऐसा होता है कि हिंदुस्तान में किसी ऑपरेशन को ऑपरेशन तब माना जाता है जब थोड़ा खून खराबा हो। ये दुखी करने वाली बात है, लेकिन जब तक कुछ कैजुअलिटीज नहीं हो तब तक ऐसा नहीं लगता है कि ऑपरेशन हुआ है। ऑपरेशन में जब ऑर्डर्स मिले उसके बाद करीब 6 घंटे में हवाई जहाज जो थे उड़ गए थे, और रात में भी ट्रूप्स पहुंचे वहां पे, और करीब एक रात में 1600 ट्रूप्स आगरा से मालदीव्स में पहुंच गए, प्रेसिडेंट को बचा लिया, और अगले दिन सवेरे होने तक अखबार में खबर आने से पहले प्रेसिडेंट को सिक्योर उसमें ले आए थे। इतना फास्ट हो जाने की वजह से लोगों का ध्यान इस तरफ गया नहीं, लोग तब भी श्रीलंका की तरफ देख रहे थे। इस कारण से इसके बारे में कम चर्चा होता है, कम बात करते हैं लोग।
Perhaps maybe उन दिनों सोशल मीडिया भी नहीं होता था, सो आजकल सोशल मीडिया में तो कोई अगर थोड़ा सा भी आहट भी होती है तो पूरा एक वाइल्ड फायर की तरह फैल जाती है। सो मे बी यस, यू आर राइट के एक तो सोशल मीडिया वाज नॉट देयर, आई फील दैट इज आल्सो वन ऑफ द रीजंस, एंड की नंबर ऑफ कैजुअलिटीज which somehow we think that unless until there are casualties, it is not a big operation or a battle. And
True.
इसके कोई, are there any parallels to Operation Cactus in military history?
काफी लोगों ने इस ऑपरेशन को दुनिया के 2 सबसे डेयरिंग ऑपरेशन से कंपेयर किया है। एक था ऑपरेशन ईश 1943 में, मुसोलिनी को एक घर में नजरबंद किया गया था एक हिल टॉप पर इटली में, और हिटलर को के लिए बहुत जरूरी था कि किसी तरीके से मुसोलिनी को बचाया जाए, तो जर्मन पैराट्रूपर्स गए थे और उस हिल के स्लोप पर ग्लाइडर से उतरे थे और जाके मुसोलिनी को उन्होंने वहां से इवैक्यूएट किया था। दूसरा ऑपरेशन है ऑपरेशन थंडरबोल्ट। 1976 में एक प्लेन हाईजैक हुआ था जिसमें इजरायलीज थे, और जिसको एंटबी एयरपोर्ट पर ले जाकर पैलेस्टीनियन टेररिस्ट ने लैंड किया था, फर्स्ट लैंड करवाया था। तो इजरायली पैराट्रूपर्स गए थे और उन्होंने 104 हॉस्टेजेस को वहां पर रेस्क्यू किया था। इन 2 ऑपरेशन से कंपेयर करते हैं इन दी डेयरिंग पार्ट ऑफ इट। इस केस में ऑपरेशन कैक्टस में भी वहां पर सिचुएशन काफी डिफिकल्ट थी, और उन हालातों में इंडियन ट्रूप्स ने लैंड करके और प्रेसिडेंट को बचाया था। इन तीनों केसेस में अगर जो जिसको हम रेड फोर्स बोलते हैं, दुश्मन की फौज जो होती है या टेररिस्ट जो थे, अगर वो वहां किसी भी तरीके से सबोटाज कर देते और हवाई जहाज को लैंड करने से रोकते, तो जो रेस्क्यू फोर्स गई थी वो वहीं पर राइट ऑफ हो जाती, लैंड करने से पहले ही तबाही मच जाती। कंपैरिजन में एक बात और आती है, जो ऑपरेशन ईस्ट था, जर्मनी का जो ऑपरेशन था जिसमें मुसोलिनी को इन्होंने बचाया था, उसमें उनको 6 महीने मिले थे प्लानिंग और एग्जीक्यूशन के लिए, और उनके जर्मन्स के हवाई जहाज टारगेट के ऊपर से कई बार उड़ के और रेकी करके जा चुके थे। तो उनके पास काफी इंटेलिजेंस भी थी और काफी मदद भी थी. ग्राउंड पर एक इटालियन जनरल उनकी मदद कर रहे थे. इजरायलीज के केस में जो हॉस्टेजेस वहां से छोड़ दिए गए थे और जो वापस आ गए थे फ्रांस में, उन लोगों से इजरायलीज को काफी इंफॉर्मेशन मिली थी और इजरायलीज को भी तैयारी करने के लिए 4-5 दिन मिले थे. जिन लोगों ने वहां पर एयर ट्रैफिक कंट्रोल की बिल्डिंग बनाई थी एंटबी में, वो लोग भी इसराइल में थे मौजूद. तो इस तरह से इसराइल को भी काफी सारी इंटेलिजेंस और मदद मिली थी. हम लोगों की केस में टाइम भी कम था और इंटेलिजेंस भी कम थी.
ओके, सो अगर हम देखें कि इसके व्हाट आर द मेन टेकअवेज, एज फार एज यू आर कंसर्न्ड, व्हाट आर द मेन टेकअवेज फॉर ऑपरेशन फ्रॉम ऑपरेशन कैक्टस?
इस ऑपरेशन को जब लॉन्च किया था, एज आई मेंशन्ड अर्लियर, कोई क्विक रिएक्शन फोर्स नहीं थी और जिन ट्रूप्स को जाना था वो हर तरफ बिखरे हुए थे. उनको इकट्ठा करना, उनको मस्टर करना और इस ऑपरेशन को लॉन्च करना एक बड़ी टेढ़ी खीर थी. मैप्स नहीं थे, काफी कुछ प्रॉब्लम्स थी. तो इससे मैं समझता हूँ कि जो मेन टेक अवे है, एलिमेंट ऑफ अनसर्टेनिटी इज अ पार्ट ऑफ ऑल मिलिट्री ऑपरेशंस. आप कितने भी ट्रेनिंग कर लें, कितने भी प्रिपरेशन कर लें, अनसर्टेनिटी हमेशा मिलिट्री ऑपरेशंस का एक इंटीग्रल पार्ट होती है. Inaction or waiting endlessly for the stars and the planets to align favorably is not a choice. आप इंतजार नहीं कर सकते हैं कि सब कुछ ठीक होगा तब हम ऑपरेशन लॉन्च करेंगे. ऑपरेशन को जब लॉन्च करना है तो लॉन्च करना है. आपके जो रिसोर्सेज हैं वो हैं. There are times to take well-reasoned risks and victory is its own validation. जब आप opportune समझते हैं moment, you have to launch the operation. You can't keep waiting. So I think those are the takeaways.
So अगर हम बोलें कि आर वी रेडी फॉर एन ऑपरेशन कैक्टस 2, अगर फ्यूचर में इस तरह के हालात कभी होते हैं, सो आर द इंडियन फोर्सेस capable of successfully executing an Operation Cactus 2?
Difficult question to answer because हर किसी इस तरह के ऑपरेशन के बाद में रेड फोर्स एनिमी, सॉरी ब्लू फोर्स, that is the friendly force, draws certain lessons, draws certain conclusions and prepares for a similar thing in future. Similarly, the Red Force, the terrorists and the enemy force, they also learn and draw lessons. So in case an operation like this is to be carried out in future, there will probably be enough resistance at the time when the troops land. Having said that, I must also say that the armed forces today have much better capabilities in terms of reaching the targets. They have parachutes which can enable them to cover a distance of about 40 kilometers, 45 kilometers, and land on small targets the size of a, say, tennis court. So both the sides have drawn their, learned their lessons, and with the capabilities that we have today, I think it should be possible to undertake similar daring missions in future.
Okay. So what are your most memorable moments of this whole operation?
I think I'll share one thing which I got from Brigadier Bulsara. When we were heading towards Male, and he had already briefed his troops and he was sitting calmly in his seat in the aircraft, I had walked up to him and I used to be very daring those days as a flight lieutenant. So I asked him to write something in my diary, what thoughts were going past his mind, or what was he thinking at that time. So this is what he wrote. He said, we'll secure the airstrip and the president by 1000 hours tomorrow. Look at the confidence of this leader. And sure enough, by 4:30 next morning, they had rescued the president. So this moment when he wrote this note for me is a very cherished moment for me. And this note, of course. Subsequently, the next day, when I went to the island of Malé and met one of the senior officers of the Maldivian National Security Service, Major Mohammad Zahir, I requested him to take me to his president, Mr. Mohammad Abdul Gayoom. So he looked at me, a flight lieutenant, wanting to meet the president. But then he was kind enough. He said that I'll take you to him a little while later because he's resting. He has not slept for a long time. Then I told him that my job was done and I would be going back anytime. Uh, and if he could write something in my diary for me. So he wrote a message saying that the Maldivian National Security Service and the Maldivians were thankful to the Indian Armed Forces for the assistance given. And he gave me his cap badge and his formation sign.
Okay.
So those souvenirs are my cherished, I'll say, memorabilia and my most valuable possessions now.
All right. So before we, let you go, a word for the youth, the defense aspirants, who are wanting to don the military uniform.
I think my message to them would be what flows as a takeaway from the operation. Whenever they do anything in life, they may join the armed forces, they may not join the armed forces, but whatever they do, the element of uncertainty will always, they cannot eliminate the element of uncertainty. So they must not give up. They must fight back and use whatever resources are available to them to the best of their ability and try to execute missions in their lives.
Okay, so thank you very much, Group Captain Chordia. I think it's been a very enlightening talk that you have shared with the viewers, and you for this wonderful talk and having spared your valuable time. So thank you very much. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Group Captain Pandey.